12:37 on TSN 690. Game Points with Matthew Ross. We are back on Sunday. GamePointsRadio.com is our website for audio. Talking some Montreal Alouettes here with Moe Khan. Moe Khan 19, by the way, on Twitter.com. He's a keen observer of the Owls and occasionally will break a story as well. So good to have him here in studio talking some Alouettes. Now, is this a hiring that caught you off guard? Did you know about it? And what's your thought on it?
I knew something was coming down. Last week when we conversed off air, I told you something was coming down within the next
Yes, we did converse off air.
Yes, we did. Numerous times. That something was going to go down with the Alouettes, coaching positions or position, and that something would happen. And this is what happened. Tom Higgins, but I did not know it would be Tom Higgins, the next head coach for the Alouettes. And I know people are sort of in the 50-50, like, well, let's see what he does. I'm not too sure what he brings to the table. And look, the pros of Tom Higgins, as Gabriel Morency pointed out before, is that he's won a Grey Cup with the Edmonton Eskimos. But the con is he hasn't coached in about 8 years, give or take. And that's a long layoff, Matt. I mean, you look at Bill Cowher, for example, right? Remember when he left the Steelers for a 3-year period? People said, will he come back? Would he come back? And he finally said no, because he realized he was out of touch with the current football players in the NFL. And same thing with John Gruden. And look at Tom Higgins. Can he reconnect with today's CFL player? And that's something that's going to be fascinating to see come training camp, this year, whether or not he's able to get the guys to buy into his systems and becoming a better football team than what it was last year under Dan Hawkins and Jim Popp.
Well, he certainly got the ring. He's certainly got the career record over 500. He's certainly got the grasping of the rules coming from the officials. So there's a lot of positive, a lot to like from the hiring, and obviously familiarity with the CFLs was mandatory for any new coach that was going to come in. Did you think there was a chance Pop was going to return as coach?
I think, speaking to other football colleagues in the Montreal area who cover the team, they all thought Jim probably had an inside track of coming back, and because the longer it went, I mean, the scenario would have been who would take this job at this juncture of the offseason, considering that all CFL teams have their staff members in place for the 2014 year. And I think, again, you look at Tom Higgins, he's hired at late February, where you look at Dan Hawkins hired in mid-March. But Tom Higgins has that CFL pedigree. I mean, he knows what it takes to win. And whether or not it's going to be Noel Thorpe's defense that wins it for them, he has to hire the right OC, and he has to bring in certain guys to run the positions on the football team, new O-line coach as well.
OC, what's your thought on that now that Higgins is in charge?
Well, you look at Tom Higgins' MO. I mean, he's always hired a youngish OC or someone who has an experienced opportunity to be an OC at this juncture. And I think for him, he's going to have to hire someone very soon, because you look at it this way. If you don't hire an OC by mid-March, you're going into April, and that's less than 2 months before training camp begins. So no matter how you look at it, the key for the Alouettes now is to get an OC in place ASAP, so that OC and Tom Higgins can start talking to the offensive side of the football, Jamel Richardson, S.J. Green, all those guys, for them to understand what their role will be this season. And also for them to hopefully get a playbook. And if they're going to have an OTA some sort in Florida in late May, you want them to understand what to expect this year, because it's not going to be the same thing as Mark Trestman was or Dan Hawkins or Jim Popp was when they were running the shows the last couple of years.
How does this help with remaining free agents or other guys that Pop wants to bring in now that they have this particular guy as the head coach?
I think it helps to an extent, but again, it goes back to the fact that Tom Higgins hasn't coached in about 8 years, right? I mean, who from this current crop played under Tom Higgins? I mean, when you look at professional sports, you always try to go to a team that has an in coach, a hot name coach, a guy that has a reputation of being able to max out on each player's value on an ice, basketball court, baseball diamond, or football field. And I think for Tom Higgins, it's a matter of the sell job, saying, okay, well, look, we have a new quarterback in Troy Smith, who we think is a great guy. But what can you sell Tom Higgins to this player or that player to come play for the Montreal Alouettes? It's not how it was 4 or 5 years ago, where Mark Trestman earned the reputation of being a great coach and was able to attract players and have guys stay in-house with the team. Tom Higgins has to do a good sell job, and also this requires Jim Popp and what he will be. And again, we look at Herb Zukowski's article in the Montreal Gazette the other day. He's on his last year. I mean, will he be back in the fold? And I'll write a blog about it on GamePointsRadio.com later on this week about my thoughts about Jim Popp and where he stands with the Montreal Alouettes.
All right, so looking now at this team, you got the head coach in place. You mentioned your theory on the OC. The roster pretty much intact. What's your outlook now with this club?
Well, you look at their schedule, Matt. I mean, it's not an easy first 5 games. I mean, you get BC. You go to Calgary first and foremost, which is a tough place to play. Then you're coming home to BC. Winnipeg will be a much improved team. Then they go out to BC, and Toronto comes into town. 5 tough games. And you look at all those teams, 3 are potential Grey Cup contenders in Toronto, BC, and Calgary. So really for this team to get off that fast start, I think 3-2 would be a solid start. 4-1 would be fantastic. 5-0 would be unbelievable. But anything less than three wins in the first 5 weeks might creep into the mind that, well, are they now going to fall back and be just a contender rather than a Grey Cup contender for years to come?
Game points here on TSN 690. What would you like to see them do in terms of, I guess, playbook, scheme, something different offensively, specifically on the offense that they didn't do last year?
I think first and foremost, injuries were a killer for the team last year. You look at the fact that Andrew Woodruff, the guard, retires. Optimus Prime, Jamel Richardson suffers a knee injury in August. He's done for the year. Brandon Whitaker's out for the year pretty much. A lot of guys were banged up. I think health will be key for the Alouettes for them to maintain any success that they will have this year. If they're able to do so where they go unscathed, then I think this will increase their chances. But you look at the East now, Matt. Toronto will be a good team. They weakened the Alouettes by signing Shea Emery. Hamilton, a young, good team. They will be a better football club under Zach Collaros as a new quarterback. You look at Ottawa. I know people are going to say it's an expansion team, but this is a team compared to what the Renegades were 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It's a better team on paper with who they've acquired through quarterback position, O-line. The one knock on the Red Blacks could be the receiving core, who will be the playmakers. But right now, Ottawa is, I'm not saying a playoff contender, but they will be a tough out for any team that goes up against them, considering that they'll have a lot of edge to them because people look at them saying the easy W. Not so fast, my friend.
All right. There you go. Little Alouettes talk for you. As Mo mentioned, check out GamePointsRadio.com in the coming days. Moe Khan 19 on Twitter for the latest